A country can be brought to its knees without a single shot being fired. No invasion, no bombs, just money. In 2026, that weapon is being used more than at any point in history. Today, we break down how economic sanctions actually work and why, surprisingly often, they fail. Look around right now, and sanctions are everywhere. The United States just renewed and tightened sanctions on Iran after a fresh flare-up in the Middle East. A new law to expand sanctions on Russia is moving through Congress, and the West is still running the largest sanctions campaign in history against Moscow. Sanctions have quietly become the go-to weapon of modern statecraft. But here's the uncomfortable question hanging over all of it. Do they even work? To answer that, you first need to understand what a sanction really is. A sanction is a deliberate economic penalty. One country, or a group of them, choosing to inflict financial pain on another to force a change in its behavior without going to war. And they come in a few flavors. The mildest are trade sanctions. You simply ban the buying or selling of certain goods, weapons, advanced technology, or a country's oil. Then there are financial sanctions. You freeze a target's assets and block them from the banking system, so their money stops moving. There are targeted sanctions on individuals, specific officials or oligarchs whose foreign bank accounts are frozen and who are banned from travel. And then there's the nuclear option, cutting an entire country out of the global payment system and freezing its central bank's reserves, locking a nation out of its own savings. So how does a penalty imposed by one country reach all the way around the world? This is where it connects to something we covered before, the power of the dollar. Because most global money flows through the dollar and through Western banks, the United States has a unique kind of leverage. It can effectively tell any bank on earth, keep doing business with this sanctioned country, and you lose your access to the American financial system. Faced with that choice, banks in neutral countries fall in line. Economists call these secondary sanctions, and they turn the whole world into an enforcement network. The most dramatic example came in 2022, when the West froze roughly $300 billion of Russia's central bank reserves. In an instant, a major power was locked out of a huge chunk of its own money. That is financial force projected across the entire planet. So why do governments reach for this weapon again and again? Because compared to the alternative, it's cheap. No soldiers die. It signals resolve to allies and enemies alike. It answers the political demand to do something in a crisis. And in theory, it can strangle an enemy's economy or its war machine without firing a shot. Power without bloodshed. On paper, it's irresistible. And yet, here's the twist. Sanctions fail far more often than you'd think. Decades of research suggest they achieve their actual political goal only about a third of the time at best. So why do these powerful tools so often fall short? The first reason is adaptation. Sanctioned countries are endlessly creative at finding a way around the wall. When the West cut off Russian oil, Russia simply rerouted it, selling to buyers like India and China, moving it on a shadow fleet of unmarked tankers, and settling deals in other currencies. Iran spent decades building a whole underground economy of middlemen and front companies. Block one door, and the money finds another. The second reason is politics. Sanctions often backfire inside the target country. Leaders blame the outside world for the hardship, rally their people around the flag, and tighten their grip. Meanwhile, it's ordinary citizens, not the elites, who feel the real pain. The regime survives, the shopkeeper does not. The third reason is leaks. Sanctions only bite if everyone joins, but they rarely all do. A single large economy willing to keep trading, say China, can become an economic lifeline that keeps the target afloat, no matter how many others pull out. And the fourth reason is simply time. Sanctions work slowly, if they work at all. Regimes can endure years of pressure. Patience usually favors the one being squeezed, not the one doing the squeezing. So when do sanctions actually succeed? The pattern is clear. They work best when they're multilateral, when nearly everyone joins, leaving no escape hatch. When the demand is specific and achievable, not surrender or else. When they're targeted at the powerful rather than starving civilians. When they're paired with real diplomacy and an offer to lift them. And when the target's economy is deeply tied to the West in the first place. Take away those conditions, and you get pressure without result. But there's a deeper cost that rarely makes the headlines. Every time the dollar is used as a weapon, the rest of the world takes note and starts building an escape hatch. The freeze on Russia's reserves didn't just punish Moscow. It sent a warning to every capital that their dollars too could be switched off. That fear is a big reason countries are now stockpiling gold and building payment systems to bypass the dollar. In other words, the more aggressively you use the weapon, the more you push the world to disarm it. Sanctions can win the battle while slowly weakening the very system that makes them powerful. So what does all this mean for you? More than it seems. Sanctions ripple straight into prices. Cut off a major oil or grain exporter, and you feel it at the pump and in the grocery aisle. They move markets and reshape which countries trade with whom. And over time, they're accelerating a slow splintering of the global economy into rival blocs, a world that is more fragmented and a little more expensive for everyone. So sanctions are the modern weapon of choice, powerful, bloodless, and far less reliable than the confident headlines suggest. The next time you hear a country has been hit with crushing sanctions, you'll know the real questions to ask. Who actually joined? Who's quietly cheating? And who's already building a way around them? If this made the news make more sense, that's exactly what this channel is for. The money story behind the headlines. Subscribe and we'll break down the next one together.